Part of the libertarian ideal is personal freedoms, and we also know that the drug war at some level has been pretty destructive. You guys have both been advocates of legalization of certain drugs. I'd like you to give me an idea of what your platform is on drug legalization, if you could, Judge.
Well, first of all, you can see why I'm so enchanted with this governor. I've told him many times that he is the most qualified person to be President of the United States that I know of. And when he asked me to be his running mate, I said I wouldn't do this for very many people I can think of, but I certainly, Governor, would for you. With regard to how I ever knew Governor Johnson existed, I was involved with drug policy reform starting in 1992, and pretty much everybody in the country knew each other who was involved in this on a big-time basis. And all of a sudden, we saw the headlines all together, didn't see it coming, that this Governor Gary Johnson from New Mexico has conducted an audit, his own audit of his own state, and then had the fortitude, the courage to stand up and say, this isn't working, we have to get our heads together and we have to change it. Whoa, you know, he didn't have any constituents to do that, but he sees what's wrong and he stands up and talks about it. And now he's doing the same thing with our economy. This isn't just the sky is falling, the sky is falling, and we need to come to grips with it. We, in the drug policy reform business, absolutely know that eventually we're going to be successful, Kevin, and in fact yesterday, the city of Chicago decriminalized marijuana. The country of Uruguay is now, the government itself is selling marijuana. Other countries, Mexico, thankfully, is starting to talk in this direction. So we have to regulate and control marijuana. By the way, pretty much every city is bankrupt, or they certainly are hurting for money. It's the largest cash crop in the state of California and probably the country. By the way, number 2 is grapes, if you care, in California. So it's out there. People are using it. Let's regulate it, control it, and tax it, and along the way, make it less available for our children. Well, it's going to happen.
So let's take a stretch then. I'm not much of an argument on the marijuana side, but what are we talking about on some of the more harder drugs? Are we proposing the legalization of other drugs?
You're talking to me or to the governor?
I believe, first of all, the only drug that I am advocating legalizing is marijuana. Okay. But Kevin, I think when we legalize marijuana, and by the way, we are at a tipping point on this issue. I think Colorado, it's on the ballot in Colorado this fall to regulate marijuana like alcohol. I think it has a good chance of passing. I think that would be the first of 50 dominoes to fall when it comes to drug policy. But if we will start with marijuana, legalize marijuana, and tomorrow wake up and recognize that law enforcement is actually going out and enforcing real crime, that the courts aren't as crowded as they have been, and that from a prison standpoint, we might actually be able to release a few of the 2.3 million people that we have behind bars. When we see that the country is actually a better place as a result of legalizing marijuana, in my opinion, we take giant steps forward toward rational drug policy regarding all the other drugs, which starts with looking at the drug problem first as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. Recognizing that 90% of the drug problem is prohibition related, not use related, and that is not to discount the problems with use and abuse, but that should be the focus. Recognition that prohibition drugs are methamphetamine and crack cocaine, neither of which would exist but for prohibition. Cheaper, easier to make, harder high, worse consequences for the user. Similar to the prohibition of alcohol, when this country was a beer drinking nation until prohibition arrived, at which time hard liquor came on the scene, which was cheaper, harder high, faster, quicker.
Easier to transport. Yeah.
All the above.